Sahana bhavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Please, you should move here. This side. Mataji should move there. Yes. Otherwise they'll complain at the end.
You don't take responsibility if you're not hearing, if you're not going to sit in the right place.
The Vedic knowledge is two types: para vidya, transcendental knowledge, and apara vidya, material knowledge connected with the Lord and thus spiritualized. Disconnected from its spiritual dimension, material knowledge becomes useless and even dangerous. What you like to read? The quote? Would you like to read the quote?
Great Acharya, maintain that all
Maintain.
Maintain that all forms of material knowledge are merely external features of the illusory energy, and that by culturing them, one becomes no better than the rest. This same principle is found here in Isopanisad. By advancement of material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted to wilderness.
Thank you. So why here it is compared to a donkey? Because a donkey carries a heavy load on his back, but he's not able to use it for his own purposes. He's carrying this load and someone else is taking advantage. So in the same way, these karmic scholars, some of them have so much knowledge and they carry this heavy burden, but they are not able to use it for their own self-interest. Self meaning the soul. And even as Maharaj pointed out this morning, even most of them they are not even able to use it materially. They cannot even apply it in the material life. So it's just completely useless. At least some of them are able to make some money out of it, but many, they just have this burden and they don't know what to do with it. If they're lucky enough, they get some job as a teacher, and they teach some subject matter that nobody is really interested. This was the standard, at least when I was in the high school. The standard was, this was the standard understanding of all my friends, that we are studying things that they don't have any practical application in life. If you would ask 100 kids at school, can you apply any of this in your life? 100 times you'll get the answer that no. Of course, you can apply it some here and there, some little maths. You learn to multiply and this much you can apply. But the rest. So this is why here it is said, an ass being converted into an ass and donkey. The modern education has no value because it does not give actual knowledge. As a result, in the contemporary society, there are anomalies such as nationalism, religious fanaticism, and lack of culture. Genuine knowledge is acquired from a dhira, one who is not disturbed by material illusion.
So people are searching, asking what is God. Searching, 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 but they fail. They say, oh, there is no God. I am God. Finished. You see, this is not possible. Here it is said, iti susrama. This is Vedic knowledge. Heard. Sushruma. From where does sushruma come? From the storekeeper? No. Dhiranam sushruma. Iti susruma dhiranam. What is dhiranam? It comes from the sober sect. Not this fanatic sect, but the sober sect. Dhira. Dhira means whose senses are not agitated by material influence, or Swami, or Goswami. Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Sri Isopanisad, Mantra 10, LA 1970.
Thank you. That means unless someone is self-controlled, he is not qualified to give transcendental knowledge. He cannot speak on transcendental subject matter. And we shouldn't listen from such people. This automatically rules out practically everybody on the academical field, especially the so-called Indologists and different scholars who study the Vedas. Of course, there are exceptions. There are always exceptions. But this is the general rule, that unless someone is self-controlled, he's not qualified to study the Vedas, even to study what to speak of teaching the Vedas. Yes.
Oh, what is an exception of that?
Well, I heard from different authorities, sannyasis like this. And there are some of these scholars, they are favorable toward Krishna consciousness. Although they themselves, they are not practicing, but they are somewhat favorable, and when they write books or speak on these topics, they present they have a proper presentation of our philosophy. So they are not inimical. They are not so gross materialistic. So, but still, we should not listen. We prefer to listen from realized persons, from devotees who actually practice and who are realized. We don't listen from these people just because they are scholars and they have knowledge. In this sense, not all of them are really negative. Some of them, they get the proper picture. Still. Yes.
Is the understanding that, like Maharaj was saying this morning, if knowledge is not applied, then it's useless. If knowledge
is not applied,
so then if people are not practicing it, then they cannot teach you really what to do with it.
That's the point. Right. Although they get it, to some extent they get it right, they can explain it to you, but they are not qualified to be spiritual teachers. And normally we shouldn't listen from them. Sohatra Maharaj was giving an example about such karmic scholars who are sitting in a pub drinking and discussing technical details from the Satsandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. What does he mean? This Sanskrit word can be taken in this way, that way. It doesn't make them qualified to speak on this subject. They can explain the Sanskrit grammar, etc., but they cannot make any devotees. The explanation won't change the heart of anybody. They can make you a karmi scholar, but they cannot make you a devotee. They cannot actually help you to make any progress in your life in any way. So that's why they are not qualified to talk in this. Yes, Paul.
That's an example of an exception from our own ranks. Where in this Rupa book, before he became a devotee, he was studying comparative religion. And they were studying the teachings of who was it? Some Mayavad philosopher. And he came to the conclusion in the end that he was talking about Krishna is the Supreme Personality. It was Sankaracharya that he came to the conclusion that what he was teaching was actually that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was before he became a devotee. not in that sense controlled at that time. But apparently he was looking for the truth, so he got it.
He got the mercy. And very good point.
There's a principle, I think it's from Chanakya, that one should be able to take a good lesson from a low-class person, gold from a filthy place, and a good wife from a low-class family.
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit expert to be able
To catch the fish and not to get... yeah. There are some devotees that they can do that, they're expert, like Paramahamsas. But we see that some other devotees, they get in trouble by associating with mundane scholars. We see that it happens again and again. They get bewildered and they deviate philosophically. There was a article I recommend everybody to read from Scotra Maharaj. It was entitled Are the karmi scholars like poisonous snakes? Question mark. It's on his website. You can read on this subject.
in the iPhone.
Yeah. Because they pose as very liberal, open-minded. But they're very narrow-minded when it comes to the question that there is an absolute truth and absolute personality of Godhead. Then they are very dogmatic. So they look like they profess that they're very liberal and this that, but they're not. They have their own dogma and they follow it. And if you don't agree with them, then they just disregard you.
I remember Dr. Isopanisad was challenged and with an academic question, and he shot back at the person who was challenging. I don't see that you were qualified even to ask this question. You a meat eater, blah blah blah, like that, and just so the bottom point is of our argument is: are they self-controlled?
Yeah. It's the beginning.
It's like a standard of what is reality.
It's like in the beginning of Nectar of Instruction, the first thing Rupa Goswami says, who is qualified to have disciples all over the world? Only if he is self-controlled. That's the first thing he establishes. So this is the main reason why there is always this tension between the academics who study the Vedas and the practitioners, those who practice. There is always this tension. It should be recognized. So we are on this side. We're in the devotion. We are on the devotional side. We have problem with people just sticking their nose in the Holy Scriptures and making all kinds of nonsense conclusions. We have problem with this. We don't agree with this. We're not, in this sense, we're not liberal and open-minded. It's not allowed. Yes, Prabhu, you want to say something?
What is the difference between dogma and axiom?
They both mean an assumption that is accepted by everybody, and it's not a subject of discussion. It can be discussed. You can explain why it is correct, but it shouldn't be doubted. I don't know. Is there in English? What's the difference between dogma and?
Axiom is practical. You can see how it works. If you apply it, it always works. Dogma.
So it's negative
There are some
connotation.
instances where even it doesn't work.
Cannot be explained
Cannot be
logically.
explained.
So you can take it in the negative sense. Dogma is something that cannot be explained logically. It doesn't make really sense. It's not reasonable. Yes, Mati. Maybe you know.
When I was studying chemistry and biochemistry, my lecturer was a South Indian lady who's Vaishnava, and she was the best lecturer out of everyone because she was self-controlled. She was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
She followed a religious life, and you could just see the difference in her ability to impart knowledge because she wasn't splayed out.
Wasn't distracted too much. Yeah. Also, my experience, my best professors were actually people who were established to some extent in sattva guna. This is what makes everything works. If you're influenced by the mode of goodness, then you can explain things, you can understand things clearly, and people like you. You're the smartest people in the school.
From your experience in distributing books, have you noticed that people who are like rabid religionists often buy books?
You mean adamant?
If they're Catholic, something like that. Whereas like a rabid academic, it's more difficult to change them, but a rabid religionist, they might be Christians, like, do you have faith in Jesus?
This type.
But if you stick with them, then they often will take
Yeah.
that experience.
Yeah, it happens more often if you compare the two groups. Although,
The worst of book distribution, argumentative people.
yeah, I don't have so much experience with these two groups because usually I avoid them. In the course of time, when you learn to understand who is who just by looking at him, or he says just one word and you already know, then the professionals usually, what they do, you go to someone who, because these two groups we don't work so well with those two. So that's why I don't have so much experience with them, but normally it's like you say, my experience is the same. This group is a little more receptive, although it's troublesome. Okay. So we have to move from mantra 11. Who would like to read the mantra from the book? You have got your books. If you are ready.
Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessing of immortality.
Thank you. So what does it mean to learn or to be acquainted with nescience? If you read Prabhupada's purport to this mantra, which everybody read, yes, I assume, you see Prabhupada is making again and again the point that to know what is ignorance, that means to understand ignorance, that means to know that it is ignorance. He's making again and again the point that the material world is a place of suffering. So to be acquainted with nescience means to understand, to realize it is nescience or ignorance. To understand the nature of this place. It's a place of misery. Dukkhalayam shashvatam. Yes.
And if you don't realize it, does that mean that you're steeped in ignorance and you don't?
If you don't realize it, that means you will find some value, something valuable here, and you try to enjoy. And that means you cannot progress. You have to stay here. This is a very interesting point, actually. In Bhagavatam, in 11th canto, Krishna says that if someone still sees that there is something here, something valuable, he might be a devotee or transcendentalist. If he still sees something interesting here, that means he's in a position of someone who dreams that he has awakened. In his dream, he woke up, but actually this is only a dream. He didn't actually wake up. He still dreams. It can take some time to realize that there is nothing here. So, yeah. So like this. Like Priti Mushe just said that he was quoting Prabhupada, if you attach even to material attachment, even to one rasagula, can keep you in the material world. Just one thing. It is not possible to overcome nature by material endeavors. Even great materialists like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana were not able to avoid death. What then can be accomplished by the tiny Hiranyakashipus and Ravanas of today, whose plans are thwarted from moment to moment? The great demons of the past tried to overcome the material nature. Most of the modern people happily conform to her cruel laws.
The path of avidya, or advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul of the body. Death is compared to the taking off, and birth to putting on of outward garment. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya, nations, do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. Isopanisad mantra 11 purport.
Thank you. So again, the same point, there is no material solution to the material problems, and we cannot actually fix this material energy because it is meant to be like this. It is troublesome for the eternal spiritual soul. We cannot fix it by, even if we follow the very, very pious lifestyle, even if we follow perfectly the Vedic culture, and we act according to Vastu and Ayurveda and astrology, everything, then still there is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, birth, death, old age and disease. This cannot be avoided. We cannot fix this material energy. We can fix our consciousness, and in this way we can go back home to Godhead, but this place will remain as it is. Dukkalam Shashvatam. Asukam Anityam Lokam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Asukam Anityam. Without happiness, and Anitya means temporary. Instead of trying to overcome the Lord's divine energy or conforming to it, the human beings should use the tribulations in the material world as an impetus to go home, back to Godhead. So this is the answer of this question: why there is an evil in this world? If there is God, why there is an evil? Why so many things are happening that are seen as negative? So the material world, as we learned from the first mantra, from the invocation, is perfect and complete. But part of this perfectness of the material world is that there are troubles inherently inside, like part of this place, because they remind us that this is not our home, and we have to go home back to God, to develop our love for God and go to the real world. So in this sense it is perfect, although there is always troubles. There are always troubles in this material world. So here we see two options. First, there are people who try to overcome the material nature. And Prabhupada is making the point, even these greatest demons in the past, they couldn't do it, so how you will be able to do it? Hiranyakashipu and Ravana and others, they couldn't make it. And it is impossible because we see 1/10,000 of the tip of the hair with compared with the 1/4 of the creation, which is the material energy. It's 1/4 of the creation. So it's a big difference. We cannot fight with this, with the material nature. So this option is ruled out. And there are other people who they don't really actively fight with the material nature, but they just conform to it. They try to somehow to get used to the situation. And I'm sure you've seen such people. When you preach, you always meet people who have enough intelligence to understand that there is some problem in this material world. It is not good. But they will go on saying, well, but this is natural, so that's the way it is. So you just, try to tolerate as much as possible, and if some sense enjoyment comes along, you just grab it, squeeze it, enjoy. And this is human life. This is what it is. These people are very hard to preach to, also. My experience. And we see the first group, because it is based on rajas, you try to overcome the material nature. You work hard. But because rajas is not stable position, it inevitably goes back to tamas. So actually the first position goes to the second. Then you get frustrated, and then you develop this philosophy that, well, it's not worth it trying, but this is the situation anyway. So it is based on tamas. Then it's not active. So without action, you won't get any result. That means we should actually be tolerant. This is what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Tam stiti kshasva bharata. But tolerance, in a sense, we should develop tolerance in the sense that we tolerate the material world. We tolerate the onslaught of happiness and distress in the material world, and we continue with our devotional service in this sense. Not just tolerate and being passive and not doing anything. Okay. Is that clear? So, who's going to read the... You want to read the quote? The miseries of this material world.
The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of vidya, or transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a Naradama, the lowest of human beings. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they do not allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead.
Thank you. In other words, we cannot hope that this planet will become Vaikuntha. Well, Prabhupada said this actually in one lecture on the Ratha Yatra, I think in San Francisco. He said, if you accept this process of Krishna consciousness, this world will become Vaikuntha. But we see this is not generally what it is said in Shastra. So, in order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. That means we must be prepared to leave our material attachments. We cannot just keep our material attachments and develop love of Godhead. It's not possible. These two won't go together. But it will make a great process, isn't it? You just keep all your material attachments and you still advance in Krishna consciousness. It's nice, huh? Just like telling to your wife or your girlfriend, I like you. I love you very much. You are the no. How they call this? Anyway, you're the most. Yeah. But I love also all other beautiful girls in town. It won't work. But this is what we do to Krishna. We actually try to work like this with Krishna. We are somehow attracted to him. We have some affection, but we also want to keep our material attachments simultaneously. And this is one of the offenses against the holy name. The last one. Is it the last one? No, it's not the last one. It's the 10th. The 10th is the 10th. Yes?
Why is it that in the previous mantra there's three definitions of knowledge, paravidya, aparavidya, and avidya? And this mantra is only avidya and vidya. Usually it comes from this definition to more. Is it because there's not so much focus in this mantra of the application of the conditioned nature?
You mean in the text of the mantra 10 or in the study guide? Ah, okay. Well, because mantra 11 speaks directly about these two, so I need to thoroughly explain it in the previous ones. We assume that you understood the point, so. As apara and para, including yeah. Mm-hmm. The process by which one goes back to Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures, and it is revealed by the spiritual master. In order to successfully follow this process, one should restrict the material sense enjoyment as far as possible. The unrestricted sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition is the path of ignorance and death. What is restricted and unrestricted sense enjoyment?
Following the rules and regulations and just doing things mentally.
Yes, so it actually doesn't mean that the senses are not engaged with the sense object. It's very important to understand this point. Because it is not that the devotees, for example, they eat less than the karmis. Some of these brahmacharis, they can eat so much prasadam that a normal karmi, if he eats so much, then he will just faint. After book distribution, that's why it said that a book distributor can digest stones. Have you heard this? Sankirtan devotees, you heard?
I heard a quote from Srila Prabhupada. He said, "A hard-working man can digest a stone."
Yeah, so it is not that the senses are not engaged with the sense object, but it is done in a regulated way. And like in the Grihastha ashram, then it is the time for expanding. And this is the time when one should buy fancy car or build a house, whatever. And there is no problem. The senses are engaged with the sense objects in a bona fide way, which is progressive. And then, when the time moves on, then when one takes vanaprastha, then is the time for the opposite. Then the senses are, it's something like pratyahara. The senses are gradually removed from the sense objects. Of course, this is again done in connection to Krishna. It's not just for the sake of renunciation. This is why it is said that if a vanaprastha have the opportunity to go for the feast, to take feast or to take simple khichdi, he should take the khichdi. But the grihastha, he can go to the feast and eat it and enjoy. So there is no problem. engaging the senses, connected to Krishna. Okay, Srila Prabhupada concludes. What did you want to read? The quote.
Human activities deceased by a tendency towards sense gratification have been regulated in various under principles of salvation. This system employs religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation, but at the present moment people have no interest in religion or salvation. They have only one aim in life, sense gratification. And in order to achieve this end, they make plans for economic development. Misguided men think that religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense gratification. Thus, in order to guarantee further sense gratification after death in heaven, there is some system of religious observance. But this is not the purpose of religion. The path of religion is actually meant for self-realization, and economic development is required just to maintain the body in a sound earthly condition. A man should lead a healthy life in a sound mind, and just to realize vidya, true knowledge, which is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or culturing avidya for sense gratification. Unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they are all simply different forms of misguided. How do you say it?
Nescience.
I also.
As we from Isopanisad indicates in the following.
Thank you. So here Prabhupada says, misguided men think that religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense gratification. This is, in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, this kind of religion is rejected. But we see now, the situation is so degraded that people are not even aware that artha comes from dharma. They think money just comes from hard work, or speculation, or in the market, or stealing, or whatever. People don't know anymore that if you want money and sense enjoyment, you have to perform dharma. Unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of devotional service, they are all simply different forms of ignorance, nations. So unless dharma, artha, and kama, and even moksha are connected to bhakti, they are not useful. They are just ignorance. Okay. Any questions? Comments? Questions? Stop here.
Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.